It's time. Hello, welcome to the October Mega Review, which is now happening in November because they came out in October. So now we're doing it in November. Hi! In this video, I'm going to be talking about 39 separate albums. Now, some of those are EPs and some of those are LPs too. If you've seen my video from last month where I talked about September's releases, this is essentially going to be in the same format, just coincidentally 50% longer. That was an hour-long video. I don't know how long this will be. I really don't. I think my raw footage for the last one was 3 hours long, so if there's 50% more albums, I, in theory, should be recording for 4.5 hours. Before we begin, I do want to quickly go over my rating scale. A 5 is like a perfectly fine album or EP. It's not bad, but there's nothing really stand out about it either. So 5, not a bad score, okay? 5, fine. 6, like. 4, not so like, but not bad, just not so like, okay? Does that make sense? Are we chill with that? 5 is not a bad score. I'm gonna be giving some 5s. Okay, and with all that out of the way, let's talk about some Japanese albums from October. I think first I'm gonna start with the EPs because, again, in theory, those should go pretty quick. At least I think they did last time. First up, I wanna talk about the new EP from the math rock band LITE. LITE has been around forever. I want to say verging on like 17 years. This is their new EP. It is titled The Beyond. And I have to say, I'm kind of in a weird spot with their music. I love it. I love their old stuff, and I also love a lot of their new stuff too, especially their album from, I want to say 2021, 2020, maybe even 2019, I forget. Those, were some weird years. Now, currently, I'm kind of at a spot with them where I like their sound. However, they've been doing it for so long, they haven't changed their sound too much. They have in some ways, and I could get into it, but I've only got about 2 minutes here to talk about this EP. But what I will say is that on this EP, they certainly do change up their sound. And I think that's largely because of their project from 2 or 3 years ago, which was like a side project with the guys from Day Day Mouse called Fake Creators. And that was this weird EDM experimental rock album, which I really appreciated actually. Luckily for me, they actually carry a lot of that flavor from that onto here. I would say that this EP really offers some pluckier guitar work, like on the opening track, and then as always, it's very atmospheric math rock too. The song Daydreamer is exactly like this for this reason, because it is this weird electronic, atmospheric, almost ambient song with no guitars. And they're a math rock band. In theory, they should have guitars, but they said, nah. There is another song in the tracklist which is called Low Tide, and I also like it a lot for this reason too. Honest to God, I think there's only guitars on about 60% of this entire EP, which is really fascinating from a longtime fan perspective, and I guess just as a fan of their guitar work on their earlier work, this is just so left field, but it really works for them actually. There is also a feature from the queen, the math rock queen, Yvette Young from Covet. Though also at the same time she is Covet. It's like a whole thing. So anyway, her feature, fantastic. I thought she worked super well because, I mean, math rock queen in this Godfather math rock project. It's kind of literally perfect. So I'm going to rate this an 8 out of 10 with my favorite song being Low Tide. Next up is another amazing EP. This is from the band I Have a Hurt, and this is titled 000000. This is a follow-up to the band's debut from 2017 and also from their EP from last year. I have to say, the first song is such a cool vibe setter and mood setter for the rest of the EP. That said though, that first song is more of like an intro song. It's not really much of a standalone one for that reason. So actually I would consider the first song being the one which is titled Left Hand. The sound of it all is just incredibly intense, and for that reason, it's so noisy, it almost sounds like static at some points. That's how crazy everything is in the mix. This song, Left Hand in particular, just has so many movements and transitions in it. In my opinion, it's really like 3 songs in one. Just to sum it up, I feel like this EP is just high-octane Shimokita rock, which also has some elements of punk and noise and Midwest emo. The songs sort of have transitions, but I wouldn't really consider them proper transitions. I think the team did their best though, and I'll give them credit for that. Though I do have to mention, there is one transition in particular, which is from Watashi wa Kokomade into Kamisama to Akuma. You just go from this extreme fuzziness of the noise of that first song into the serenity of the second. The way they pull it off too is just so slick. It's really, really nice. With that said, I'm going to rate this an 8 out of 10 as well, and I'm going to say my favorite song is Left Hand. last month, the jrock band Eastoklab came out with a new EP, which is titled Stella. This is real proper jrock with a side of J-pop too. I would really say that this EP has a real emphasis on the sound of the guitars and just their overall sound and melodies, and also slickness here too. Though I will also say that there is a very frequent synth pop sound across this entire EP as well, with I want to say the most standout examples being the songs Argo, Mars, Vega, and Sirius. I think overall this is a completely fine EP. I think if you're a fan of the band, this is just more of what you'll like. I have to say I was not too impressed with what I heard on this EP, so for that reason I actually went back to their album from last year, which is titled Your Moro, and I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. Way more than this EP. So in the end, I am going to rate this a 5 out of 10, with my favorite song being Mars. Next is the second EP from the band Teiichi, and this is titled あなたについて. This is math rock mixed with jazz, mixed with folk, and you could maybe even say it's mixed with a few other things too, though I think at that point you are kind of too hyper-specific in a way. Though, I will say, on their Twitter they call themselves Acid Folk, and that's awesome. That's a really cool name, and I will be using that in the future for other projects too that are very similar to this. Basically, this is a lovely combination of genres and sounds and techniques and styles and also personality too. I really like this EP. This EP is kind of like, what if Shintaro Sakamoto, yes, I know, I did not plan that, what if he was in tow? That's all I'm putting out there. That is such a winning combination in my mind that for that reason, this is a winning EP for me as well. And I also feel like the singer sings with a hint of like Tom York, especially on the song Waterside. This was such an enjoyable EP, in my opinion, that I listened to it a few times. I had to buy it, dude. It's too good. I really like this EP, and I really recommend you check it out. For that reason, I'm gonna rate it a 10 out of 10 because this thing is just undeniably good and undeniably fantastic, and I am now a huge fan of this band. And my favorite song is going to be the one which is titled Omoidasenai, which in English would be I Can't Remember. And also, while we're talking about my iPod, look, I got it signed by Haru Nemuri. Isn't that cool? Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we have another math rock album. This is going to be from the band Sweet Rain, and this is titled Senseless. Whenever I listen to it, I just have one thing in my mind. This EP is like what if Brian Eno produced for Yukiguni or Paranoid Void. Does that sound cool to you? Because it sounds super cool to me. Though I do have to admit, I'm a little bit confused about this band a little bit because they also had an album which came out 2 days after this EP, but I think it's a compilation from what I've read, but I don't know if they're considering it a compilation or a full album. So for that reason, it's not included in my list, though if you want more of this, that is available. All of the instrumentation on here is perfect. I love everything about it. I love every member, but I have to say, the real standout for me is probably the lead singer's voice, and his name is Saku Kawakami. And I just love the way he belts out all of these like really interesting lyrics and melodies. And I want to say that part of the reason why I think Brian Eno for these guys is because the lead singer kind of sings like Chris Martin from Coldplay, who have of course worked a lot with Brian Eno in the past. So I think that's maybe where I get it from, though I think there's just a lot of overall production that is really making me think Eno. But anyway, back to the lead singer's voice. It's very raspy, yet also smooth. He kind of has this ascending scale of like rasp into smooth or smooth into rasp. It's really cool. And I just have to say that I love the way he sings overall. I think he has a fantastic tone to his voice as well. Whenever I listen to this EP, I never want it to end. I just love listening to these songs. Even if they're not on this EP, I just like their music in general. I'm a huge fan now. Do you have any idea what's coming up next? I hope you do. You should buy this too. Lovely EP, one of my favorites of the year so far. So with that said, I'm going to rate it a 10 out of 10, with my favorite song being Melt Away. Okay, 次は Choreography の物語が始まる街で, which in English is, this is the band Choreography with their album, or sorry, their EP, which is In the Town Where the Story Began. This is the band's second EP. How cool is that? This is folk rock. It's also very reverby and also dream rocky, dream poppy sounding too. And for that reason, I'm gonna call this Dream Folk. This EP really reminds me of an album that I reviewed earlier this year, which was Manga House by the band Manga House. That was something I really enjoyed a lot. And for that reason, I like this a lot too. And oh my God, I have to mention, there is this sick guitar solo in the middle of the song Tokyo Tower. Dog, that's crazy. And I think in general, the guitar for me is really a highlight on this whole EP. And it's even to the point where it almost kind of reminds me of Lynyrd Skynyrd, just in the way that the guitar is like sonically soaring across all of these tracks. I want to say towards the end, the EP and the songs on it really kind of turn into more of like a regular indie rock sound, so I feel like they kind of lose that dream folk aesthetic and sound a little bit as it goes on. So I kind of wish they continued that all the way through, or just had more songs in this vein, which surely, I mean, I think they will, especially with this being their second EP. So yeah, that is In the Town Where the Story Began. I am going to rate this a 7 out of 10, with my favorite song being Harukaze, which means spring wind. Okay, next up, we are talking about the debut EP from a very new band. This is Yosuka, and this EP is titled Haru. This is a 4-piece band, and this EP has 3 songs on it. This is like real slow indie shoegaze and also post-rock. This EP kind of reminds me of one that I reviewed 2 or 3 months ago from the band Mother. So, you know, maybe if you like that, I think you will really like this. This also kind of reminds me of the heavier post-rock sound of Hammerhead Shark. So I think if you're familiar with them, that's just another aspect here that I guess you can latch onto. I love the lead singer's voice of this band. She is fantastic. And something I noticed too, the vocal recordings on each of the songs has a ton of in-room reverb, okay? And that's important because I think that means that the vocal recordings are almost entirely unedited. And what that means is that she's an amazing singer. This just comes out of her without any kind of alteration or like fixes needed. That is incredible. All of the songs and the compositions here are extremely tight and slick, and they know when to end, and they know how to progress throughout the songs themselves. So it's for that reason that I am investing early. I am here day one, okay, for this band, and then when they are like mega popular in like 2-3 years, remember me, because I was here first. Okay, I was first in line. So I am going to rate this an 8 out of 10, with my favorite song being Kyo no Koto, which means today's things or thing of today. And I like this so much, and I recommend it so much. iPod, baby, go check it out. Next up is the new EP from the band Res Noise, and this is titled Chapter 1. I love how this EP kicks off. I like the pacing of this EP in general. Now, with the first song, I was a little worried that it would just be this very mainstream J-rock sound, which I'm just not really a fan of. I really like that indie rock and alternative rock more, but that second song is like straight punk, so that really saved it for me. And with that said too, I think I like this sound for them more. I think they're very technically inclined musicians, so I would really like to see them do these very complicated compositions more, because I just think they really shine. For example, I love the way that the guitar sounds on the song Tabula Rasa, and I also have to say that I am a huge fan of the bass work too, and I think overall, the sound on this EP really reminded me of the sound of the band Banshimoku, who I've been covering all year because they were at Next Music from Tokyo. And I do really recommend it if you are into more punk music that is maybe verging on not quite gent, but at least maybe some prog rock a little bit. So in the end, I'm going to rate this a 6 out of 10, with my favorite song being Tabula Rasa. Next up, we have the new EP, which is titled Ephira, from the band Real Rail. This is actually their second EP of this year, and it's their third overall. I think this band has such a unique and interesting approach to J-rock. It has this frequent piano used throughout most of all of the songs, and for that reason, the songs sound very regal and fantastical. And honestly too, I kind of get the feeling that these would fit really well as like battle themes in Final Fantasy or the Persona games. This band also had another EP from earlier this year, which was titled Persephone. And that was one that I really liked a lot. And I guess in a way, this EP here sort of furthers that fantastical vision that was introduced on that EP. Personally though, I like the sound that the band was going for on that last EP more. I thought it was more engaging and just fun and fluid and just really made me excited for the next song in the track list. One thing I do want to point out though is that I really like the lyrics on the songs Lepus. This song is about wanting to stop comparing things that you used to have to the current ones. Some, I guess, very abstract versions of these comparisons being up and down, big or small. I think at the end of the day, this song is just about the singer wanting to be at peace with the changing times, because overall she just wants to look forward to tomorrow, but still also trying to be content with the things that have passed and are now gone. So I think for me, much of this EP really reminds me of work from Suichu Spica and also Chocho Merged Syrups, and I feel like structurally the songs are really similar too. I would not really call them math rock though, especially on this EP. Maybe more so on Persephone, just not here on this one. This EP, I just don't like the songs as much as on that last one, and also I feel like the vocal mixing is kind of poor. I feel like in general, the vocals are just always mixed underneath the instrumentals, and it's hard to make out what the singer is even saying in almost all cases, at least for me. Though I know I do already have a disadvantage because I don't speak the language fluently, it's still just hard to pick up what's being said. And I want to say that the most prominent example of this would probably be on the song Sugai, but despite that, Sugai is still my favorite song on this EP. I'm gonna rate this a 7 out of 10. I think it could have been better, especially as shown on that last EP, and I guess for that reason, I am now looking forward to their next one because I'm hoping they know how to improve from here. So, yeah. Okay, so this next EP is titled Reveryscape, and this is by Shikihiro. This is one of the many EPs that I have been absolutely yapping about on Twitter lately. I think I want to say that the day after this EP came out, I checked them out on Spotify, and they only had one listener, and that was me. I think, maybe. It was just me. I was literally number one, okay? I am the day one number one first person in line for this band, and I don't feel bad about saying that at all. I love this EP. It's so great. It kind of strikes something primal in my math rock, prog rock lizard brain. On top of that too, I find that a lot of the songs just swell up in a very gent kind of way. I guess in a very gently sort of way. So for that reason, I feel like if you love and also miss John, you're gonna like this a ton. Because oh my god, the guitar riffing across this entire EP is just so colorful sounding. It's great, and I love listening to it loud because the mixing, fantastic here. Really, really nice job. And I think especially the drums are just mixed incredibly well too. I like it a lot, though I will say, not every song is for me. I like most of them, but I wouldn't say every song is a 10 out of 10. I'd say at the very least, lowest rated song is gonna be like an 8 or 9. I'm just not there with a 10. So with all that said, I'm going to rate this a 9 out of 10, though I think this might raise to a 10 for me the more I listen to it. My favorite song is going to be the one which is titled Palette. Last month, the band Yoyogi de Coco released a self-titled album. This EP is listed as pop, though I find it also includes rock and jazz too, especially with the first song, which is titled No Miso. It's sort of like Indigo La End, except I think more fun and well written, because I am an Indigo La End hater, and I will say that till I die. And I say that because it sounds like, in general, a lot of this could have been written by Einon Kawatini, so I kind of see the connection there. I'm assuming maybe they like his music and his other side project music as well, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I just kind of thought this was a much better jazz rock version of their music. There is one song on here which is titled Haru, and so this to me kind of sounds like late career Kinoko Teikoku, which that's awesome. I love that. Generally, all of the songs here are just cute songs about love, and that's just nice. Though, with that said, there are no lyrics that really gripped me. I just thought they were standard jrock songs about love. Normally, I think I would rate something like this a 6, though I really enjoyed the instrumentation from everyone in the band here. So, you know, I think I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. Nothing wowed me, though I will say the talent and the potential is there for future work. So yeah, 7 out of 10 with my favorite song being Farwar. I think that's how it's said, probably. Okay, so number 12 is going to be the new EP from Toko Miura. This is titled Condominium. And so I was not really familiar with her in the slightest. I think I saw this on Twitter, so I checked it out. Apparently, she was the singer for a handful, I think, of songs from the Weathering With You soundtrack by Radwimps, which is really, really cool. This EP here, though, has it all, okay? It has poppy and jazzy production. The song Comet in particular sounds like you're inside of a jazz kaleidoscope. And I just have to point out, there is great string instrumentation across this entire thing. I was not expecting that in the slightest, but it sounds so great with all of this pop production here. And oh my god, Toku's voice is absolutely sublime. And there are all of these samples and recordings of, I want to just say, transportation. So I think if I remember correctly, it starts with the sound of like running footsteps, and then it has an airplane on the next song, and then the next song is like a train, and then the song after that is maybe like car traffic noises. Speaking of that plane one though, I love that in particular because that is used on the song Supine. Now on this song, that plane, I think they play like sound effect for a good 10-ish, maybe 15 seconds, and that acts as the bridge on the song in a way. And I thought that was such a cool idea. So I'm not quite sure what it is, but it seems to me like transportation or like traveling as a theme is very, very frequent and a very big one on this EP. And honestly, I love this a lot. I literally can't stop listening to it. I listen to it a few times a week. So for that reason, I'm gonna rate this a 10 out of 10, with my favorite song being Supine, because it's great. And somehow we have made it to our final EP already. This is EP number 13. This is going to be the EP titled Pool by the band Roy Bob. This is their debut EP, which is so cool. They were formed last year, and this is synth pop, synth rock, and also synth electronic. I think maybe if you know the Japanese duo band Uilo, is how you pronounce it, maybe, you will love everything here. This band is just so enamored with the structure of songs, it seems like. They are practically switching vibes and transitioning into other kinds of songs throughout the songs themselves. Like for example, on the song Angel, there is basically a whole new song that plays within the last like 30 seconds of the song, and then it's just over. It's crazy. I feel like this is kind of verging on shoegaze, yet also still very much bedroom pop, but in general, it just has such a diverse sound arrangement on this whole EP. And I also have to shout out how the lead singer, Ni, writes and sings her lyrics too. They are all very cutesy, and she's also the lead guitarist, and she's killing it there too. And I should also mention the main melody on the song, which is the final one, which is titled Sync. Everything is just going crazy. And oh my god, the bassist for this band, their name is Russo, and they're delivering on every single song too. I just think everything here is perfectly balanced, great songwriting, great unique sound, and I crave a full album from this band. This is incredible stuff. I'm gonna rate this a 10 out of 10, and my favorite song is gonna be Mirror. Please, please, please check this out. If I'm rating something a 10, which I seem to be doing a lot today you should listen to it, I think. Okay, so with that said, we are now done with the EPs. Let's transition into the albums. There are 26 of those. First up, I want to talk about the album Wish I Were by the band Zoo. This is their first album in 6 years, and I would really say that this album has the sound of that 2000s sunburst sort of indie rock and garage rock. And so because of that, I think if you like bands like Supercar and Jimmy Eat World and also Asian Kung Fu Generation and also Gangnam Boys, you will like this. Now for me, I would say that the guitar was just kind of serviceable. That said though, I will still say that the highlights were probably the drums and also the vocals on this album. Most notably, I like the vocals on the song Nishikimachi Rock, and then I also really like the bass on the song Human Being. I do feel like pretty much everything came together on the song Kibo no Uta, which means hopeful song or song of hope. So I think in conclusion, I would say that this album has a lot of like slow burning hits, and those are really, really well done. I will say though that the album only really starts to kick off maybe 3 or 4 songs in, so you kind of have a wait before you get to the actual meat of the album, though I still like a lot of the songs on this album. For that reason, I'm going to rate this an 8 out of 10, with my favorite song being Otona ni naru, which means to become an adult, or I'm becoming an adult. Yeah. This next album actually came out on the same day as that last one. This is going to be Tender's self-titled album, Tender. Normally, Tender is the kind of guy to make really fun pop jazzy hits, and yes, that is still pretty much all what's happening here, though I will say, this is particularly funky. though of course his music always has been too. Despite that though, not everything on here is actually pop. For instance, there is a slow folk pop song which is titled Such Days, Such Me, and I like that a lot actually. And as always, his vocals are really amazing, and I love the instrumentals across this whole thing too. They were really well chosen, I thought. The song Runaway in particular, oh, it's so great, and all of the musicians there are in such harmony when they play, and I especially love the keyboard too. Oh my god. Unfortunately, this album is only 26 minutes long. It's incredibly short, and I desire more. But luckily, he has a ton of other music out from years and years ago. So luckily for me, I can just go back to those ones because they'll always be there. So yeah, I actually really recommend this. This is kind of a shorter review because I think that's really all you need to know. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like most pop music is a little bit one track, one note, so I don't really need to go into detail about how these love songs are not the same as other love songs, right? So anyway, I'm gonna rate this another 8 out of 10, and my favorite song is Runaway. Next up is an album I had very strong opinions about on Twitter. This is going to be the album Shinrichu o Oyogu Sakana Tachi, and this is by the artist Teiichi. Now, the album title is a little bit confusing. My translation would be Fish Swimming in Shinruchu, which is kind of a, from what I can tell, apricot cooking wine or just wine in general, I think. However, on Apple Music, it is titled Fish Swimming in Dope Memories, and that does not seem right. So yeah, just a heads up. This is the band's debut album, and I had a lot of things to say about it. Now, I do think that my primary complaint was that this was really imitating the band Seapool. Seapool actually broke up about 2 or 3 years ago, and for that reason, they have kind of left a hole in that very specific style of post-rock and metal and grunge. So in some ways, it's kind of nice that Teiichi is now picking up that torch. Unfortunately, I think they were doing it in a very strange way. And by that I mean they were completely copying Seapool. I did not like that because what made Seapool so unique was that very weird sound that they really made their own. And I think to me, that is what is so special about their sound. It was their own. No one else was really making music like that. So for me, when I heard this album, I was like, oh, this is like, ooh, I don't think I like this. And I kept listening to it, and I kept listening to it, and I kept listening to it. I think throughout that whole first day of it having come out, I listened to it 4 times. And by the end, I came around to actually really enjoying it. Because those feelings aside, this is still a really well-made album. And you know, if you haven't heard Seapool, then you don't have anything to compare it to, so you're kind of golden, I guess, in that way. But because I think I am such a huge fan of that band, I was just kind of rubbed the wrong way. So with all that said, I don't think they're ever going to beat the Seapool allegations. Never going to beat those charges, ever. But on the other hand, I do really like the music here, and that's because I really like Seapool's sound. It's also super weird that they even copied the sound and style of the interludes from Seapool. It's just so one-to-one, I can't get it out of my head. So I really tried to get that out of my head, and once I did, I really started liking this album. I do still think that Teiichi really puts their own spin on the Seapool aesthetic, so I will give them some credit for that, I suppose. Here's how I would put it, right? I think the song Kagawa Flower Shop really captures that Seapool sound, yet Teiichi injects their own soul into it, right? So overall, I love the sound, and I also love the artistry here, and I think, my feelings aside, this is a wonderful album. And again, if you like this, you should go listen to Seapool. Their discography, very short. You can probably listen to it all within an hour and a half. And I think you should, because it's all amazing music. Okay, so I am going to rate this album a 9 out of 10. And my favorite song is going to be Nagareboshi. There is one album that I've been talking about for 6 months. And honest to God, I am tired about talking about it. I've made so many videos and shorts and all that. This is going to be... this is going to be Hishi no Ito Hitori de ni by the artist Kanekoayano, the person. I recently made a short about this. You can go check it out if you like. I talk about it more there, but I guess let me just give my final thoughts here. This is the new album from the solo artist Kanekoayano, not the band. Not the band. This album is just inescapable for me, I think, at this point. This is essentially the same album that came out back in April. However, this is just Kanekoayano. Here she is playing all of the parts. This is more or less a solo acoustic guitar album. And so it's fine. And I've also talked about how much I like her singing and her guitar playing. So it's like, what more can I say? The songs have changed a little bit because of this change in lineup, obviously, but they're still really solid. Somehow Ayano manages to do so much more with so much less. Because of course this album sounds a lot more intimate because it is just her and her guitar for the most part, and I feel like this is significantly folkier than the original is, though of course that's because her trademark sound is her with her guitar making folk music. Duh. That said too, I would almost call this poppier because it's less rocky, right? I think for me, I would call this Hitorideni version folk pop, kind of noise still, but maybe not so much on that noise aspect. Some of the songs here even have some sound effects added to them as well. I think with some of my favorite being Ishitocho, featuring some crashing waves, and then the opening song Noise has some record crackling in it too, which I thought was cool because it's called Noise. And I was like, oh, hey, maybe this is just my record. Nope, none of the other songs have this kind of record crackling or scratching on them, so I thought that was kind of cool. She also plays all 4 instruments on the rendition of the closing song here, which is called Mizu no Naka. Here she is playing the guitar, and the bass, and the banjo, and the drums. And of course, she's doing the vocals too. The songs were already fantastic, but still, I love this direction for her. This is like classic kanekoayano for real. Now, when scoring this, I was like, do I just give it a 10 because I gave the last album a 10? And I think I will, only because the songs here are not any worse than they were on that album. So it seems weird to assign a lower score, you know, because I don't like the songs less. They're not really poorly made compared to the originals, they're just different. But the songwriting, of course, is still there, and the guitar work and the vocals. And that was the main thing I praised about the original album. Though I will say, I miss the 2 percussionists. They're not here, but I'll live. And so because of that, I will also rate this a 10 out of 10, with my favorite song being Hi no De, which means sunrise. The curse is lifted. I can finally stop talking about this album. Goodbye. Alright, so next up we have Plural Pain Packs by the band Eastoklab. This is their debut album, and this fucking rocks, dude. This album is from the record label Oiko, and they are quickly becoming my favorite record label of all time. And so of course, when I saw that they were signed to this label, I said, okay, so this will be fantastic. Great. Good for me. Now, this music is sort of melodic, not quite math rock. It's sort of like Yukiguni in a way, where yes, it's math rocky just because of the guitars, but it feels like that's not the style that they are intentionally going toward. But what I will say, this is extremely Midwest emo-y, and I love that. This just sounds like really sullen soft rock for an autumn day. That's the best way I can describe it, and that is what I feel in my heart. There's also really something about the sound of this album too. It kind of has this DIY aesthetic to it in the way that it's produced and mixed, and I really, really like that sound. Because in particular, there is one song which is titled Comfortable Hole / Goodbye, which is crazy because of this aesthetic, if you will. For example, this song features probably the shittiest snare I've ever heard in my life. It sounds so bad, but it sounds so sharp, and it's fire because of that. So kind of in a weird way, hats off to the production team behind the scenes, because they really made this sound exactly like this style, and it really works. Honest to God, this is probably one of my favorite rock albums of the year, which is saying something but also isn't saying something, because I feel like that list of some of my favorites is like 30 albums long. But hey, they made it. You know, usually I like to mention negatives that I have about the album at the end of these reviews, but I don't really have any. I guess I will say that it's maybe a little bloated, and it kind of wore me out kind of throughout, not even just at the end. So I feel like maybe if they cut down a little bit, or maybe if they cut down the runtime of the songs, that might have worked a little bit better for me, because I want to enjoy an album all the way through and not have to think about anything that's kind of taking me out of the experience, right? Despite that though, there's no songs I don't like. So yeah, I'm gonna rate this a 9 out of 10, with my favorite song being that one called Comfortable Hole / Goodbye. This next album is actually one that I talked about in my experimental music video about a few weeks ago. This is going to be Timeless Echoes by the artist Yoshino Yoshikawa. This is some fantastic jazz, pop, dance, experimental, video game OST sounding music. I hope that sounds interesting to you, because this is a really interesting album. This album features some really cool electronic pop production, like on the song I'll See You Again, which just sounds like you're flying through a crystal. It's great. The mixing is so good on this song and the album as a whole, so hats off to Yoshino. He rocked it. I also love the sound palette, because Yoshino is using a very rigid set of sounds, it sounds like to me. There aren't a ton and it's not too varied, but because of that, he is able to make such a cohesive sounding album with like all of these same sounds. Like for example, the song Look Ahead kind of sounds like everything else here, as it should, but man, this is a bop. It's probably my favorite dance track of the year, but like I'll probably still have to mull that over in my head until award season, I guess. I want to say that the way I described this song in that experimental video was that this is like an Undertale song with a reggaeton beat. This album features Japanese and English lyrics, which is fantastic for me, and I would also say that Yoshino's vocals perfectly match the instrumentals too. They are always keeping up, they are in time, they are in pitch, they're great. I think the closest thing I can compare this to is probably modern day Kirinji in the way that he makes very fun, funky pop beats. That's a lot of what's on here too. I am going to rate this an 8 out of 10, with my favorite song being Look Ahead. I am rating it an 8 just because not every song is a winner. I think there's a few that I would maybe rate like maybe in between a 5 and a 7, but for the most part, the songs are like 9s or 10s. So about 2 months ago, I made a video about how much I like the Bocchi the Rock anime tie-in soundtrack, and I do like it a lot. Well, guess what came out last month? We got the newest live album from the band, but at the very least, the actual voice actresses are singing their actual songs. So yes, this is a live album, and I'm covering this because I covered the Kanekoayano live album last month, and I think I'm gonna do the same here. Though I'm not going to score them the same, and I'll talk about that when I get to the score. So anyway, unlike that Kanekoayano live album, the mixing here is actually really good. It was kind of ass on that last one, which is why I wasn't like a super huge fan of it, though I did still like the renditions of the songs. Here too, I like the renditions of the songs. But the lead singer of the band in real life and also in the show is named Ikumi Hasegawa, and she sounds amazing. Like, scary amazing. Wow, she didn't need anyone to edit her audio in post for the show. She literally just sounds like that, and that is insane. Though, I will say, all of the voice actresses sounded really good too, but Ikumi was just... I don't know. I didn't know singing like this was possible. Okay, so what about the actual songs? They're great. The set list here is actually wonderful. And what's cool is that they actually played all of the covers of those Asian Kung Fu Generation songs. I was surprised they're on here just because I guess they're not their own songs, so maybe they don't have like the rights to perform them. Nope, they did them anyway. I guess one negative is that this performance is an hour 42, so this took me a while to get through. It's fantastic though. Like I said, set list, perfect. I actually think it might as well be their entire discography if I'm being honest. I don't remember exactly actually. But yeah, holy shit man, this thing is massive, and I have to say, it was so smart to intersperse these songs with the other singers, because that way Ikumi could take a break from this gigantic set list. Smart move. My favorite song was Ano Band, and what I want to rate this is on amazing. I think for live albums, I'm not going to give them a traditional number score because the songs aren't from the live albums, right? They are from the actual original albums or EPs or singles, so it feels weird to assign a score to a live performance, so I won't. So I think I am just going to score this amazing, which I think is the highest tier of what I would rate a live album. Consider this maybe like an 8 to 10 range live album. I just really, really, really like it. It has a lot of fantastic qualities to it, and I can't think of any negatives. So yeah, this scoring will come up again a little bit later too. Next is the solo album from Koyuki Ura, who is the lead singer of the band Sunday May Club. This is her album Sugamero, or Sugar Mellow. Sunday May Club came out with an album back in April or May, which I did like, and I have a review of it if you want to check it out. This is what the thumbnail looks like. Thank you. I think ultimately a lot of the songs here are a lot like what Sunday May Club is making, which is not surprising considering she is the front woman for that band. This is a lot of fun, breezy rock. The very first song is called Lilac, and honestly, I thought it really kickstarted the album off super, super well. It is so cutesy, like I said, and then even despite that as the opening, this album gets even poppier as it goes on, especially with the song Sugar and Honey. There is another song too, which is titled Kimi to Tabemono, and this was probably my favorite song in that sound. And that's because there is this sparkling sound effect at like the very end, right? And it's almost like she's like waving a magic wand across the track, and it's leaving all of these sparkles in its way. So cool. I think overall, this is a nice sounding album. Nothing really grabbed me, though I will say the overall vibe is actually nice and pleasant and fun and happy. With that said, I will rate this a 7 out of 10, with my favorite song being Kimi to Tabemono, which means you and food. Okay, next is an album that I went in completely blind about, and I just heard about it, I think on Twitter, and I ended up really liking it. This is going to be the album Is Summer Near by the artist Nothing Out the Window. Personally, I love the American band Turnover, and in my opinion, the most turnover sounding Japanese band has always been Bearware, but I think Nothing Out the Window is now taking that spot, very handedly too. This album features some pop punk and some Midwest emo, and also some like really heavy shoegaze and post-rock. This album really has that stoner rock sort of vibe to it and flow, and I'm rocking with that so hard. Absolutely everything about this album just hits. The drums, the guitar melodies, the singing, and the bass accompanies it all perfectly, dude. This album is only 35 minutes in length, which I think is perfect for this kind of sound. There are so many bombastic pop rock songs here. But despite that, I think maybe my favorite on the album is the very like grungy sounding In the Swirling Dark. And then actually after this song too, the album gets a lot darker, a lot more post-rock. One song in particular is called After Solace, and this is a really shoegazy post-rock grungy track, which maybe reminds me of Slowdive if they just got a lot more like dirty with it. I like this a lot. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10, and my favorite song is going to be In the Swirling Dark, though it could really be anything on this album. They're all fantastic. Again, I like this so much, I bought it. You should too. This is, again, one of my favorite rock albums of the year. I'm giving it a 10, so that must be true, right? And hopefully you also like rock music, because I'm going to be talking about it for a while here. This next album is dude, I don't even know. This is a real tone setter. This is the album Arc by the band Hard Nuts. This thing is all over the rock spectrum. This thing has like every sound from forever. I love how every song sounds. It's got all kinds of inspirations from all kinds of bands and genres. I won't even start because it just has all of them on here. What's more, this album is massive at a 51-minute runtime. And I have to say too, the songs are just great. They are all standout tracks. I like them a lot, and I want you to read my tweets here about things that I said about this album, because this is what I feel. There is just so much variety on this album in all kinds of ways. One such being that a few of the songs even have female backing vocals too, like on Teiichi and Falter, and also Lise, I'm not quite sure. But I thought that this really reminded me of the work from Jenny Lewis on the Postal Service album. I don't know, that's just kind of what I got. And then sometimes these songs just get absolutely wild too, like the beat switch on the song Ivy, which goes crazy. Oh my God. Now I need to talk about the negative a little bit. And mind you, negative, there's only one. And that is that this album is so long. I've listened to it like 8 times. That's like 4 hours of my life, I think, or more? No, it's like 6 or 7. There's just too much on here. I think the songs themselves needed to be shaved down. I think this could honestly live with like 3 less songs. There is maybe a little bit too much spread out over the runtime. I do really think they could have polished up a lot of these by maybe not having them on the track list, or maybe making them interludes or something. I just don't think every song is a hit, though I think most are. With all that said and done, I'm going to rate this a 9 out of 10, with my favorite song being Yohaku. Next up is an album that a lot of people seem to really be enjoying, at least from what I can tell online. This is going to be Melt by the band Rubens. This is their debut album, so congratulations, Rubens. Now, I had actually listened to their EP from last year, which I really liked. That was called Murmur, liked it a lot, and for that reason, I was very excited for this to release, because I think they announced it 2 months in advance, I want to say. Maybe, I don't know. This is really indie rock at its core, yet it still has a lot of pop elements too, and also kind of that jazzier Indigo La End sound, though I like this way more than Indigo La End. And I say that primarily because of the instrumentation on the hooks, because man, these hooks are catchy, just like an Indigo La End song, but I think in general, I think the lyrics on the hooks and the verses are just way better than Indigo La End could pretty much ever do in the modern day, with my favorite example being on the song Flagere. On this album, the guitar and the bass sound great, especially the outro on the first song, which is titled Steam of Love. God, the instrumentation there goes crazy. But I have to say, I love the drummer for this band too. Their name is Matsumaru. They are killing it, but also too, the vocals are slick and sharp, and they are provided by the singer who is named Serena. I would also really call her songs slick and sharp too, because she has a great range and she utilizes that in all kinds of ways. What's really interesting too is that the lyrics on this album have a real theme of being forgotten, being left behind. And I think that is where the title of the album really comes into play. I did really like that theming device used throughout the track list time and time again. Super well done. I do kind of feel like the album loses steam right towards the end. I think starting with the song Tsukinami-chan, that kind of ruined the flow for me, and it never really picked back up. I think the songs, including that and After, are fine, but they do not live up to the hype and the energy of like the first half, unfortunately. The songs themselves are not even bad or just low quality. I just think they kind of sound out of place with everything that came before it, you know? I am going to rate this an 8 out of 10, with my favorite song being Night is Melting, which is the last one, actually. Okay, next up is an album from an artist I like to refer to as Vondi, but better. This is going to be Ritsuki Akiyama's new album titled Flatland. Now, Ritsuki Akiyama actually came out with his last album called Bum's Monk 3 months ago, I want to say, which is another that I covered in that experimental video. Check it out, I don't know. With this having come out so soon after that one, it is more of the same, yet I feel like the direction has shifted somewhat. This is less jazzy and bossa nova and just more rock and just more like what can he do with rock? And he can do a lot. He can add a ton of sound effects and mixing, and I don't know, dude, like this thing just sounds crazy. And I feel like you can really tell this even from the very first song, which is called Soundcheck. This is delicious sounding. That's how I would really describe this album as a whole. This album is one of those situations where I don't want to really spoil it for you because I think it is such a treat to listen to. Just know that when you listen to it, there are going to be all kinds of sounds coming at you from all directions, but it's a wonderful thing. Honest to God. It kind of seems to me like Ritsuki said, I'm going to put my hand back in the Bum's Monk bucket, but I'm going to go in deeper this time. And that's when I'm going to take something out. Because it still sounds like it, like I said, but slightly different. I feel like it kind of has the same problem as Bum's Monk, where it's really front-loaded. And then like the last 1 or 2 songs are really good too. It's that kind of like middle and like last quarter maybe that are kind of iffy, and they don't really grab my attention like the beginnings of these albums do. I think maybe Ritsuki needs to work on sequencing because I do like his music a ton. I just think the flow of his albums is kind of weird. And also because his music is so weird, I don't even know what advice to give because I just don't know how you make this work in a really pleasing stroll kind of way. Regardless, I am going to give this an 8 out of 10, with my favorite song being New Intellect. In October of this year, the band The Hatch released their new album, which is titled 333. This thing sounds like magic. This is equal parts progressive rock and jazz and also punk, but this album is just enveloped in natural sounding vines and leaves and foliage and like moss and maybe some birds too. It's like nature rock, I guess. I think to me, this really sounds like a long-form improv session, which has its pros and its cons. I think the pros is that the overall sound direction, solid. I love how this sounds. Like I said, natural sounding, jazzy sounding, really, really cool. Otherwise, it's a little bit directionless because it is so freeform. Because in my opinion, the first 5 songs really pass like a blur, sort of. And then the final 4 songs have a real distinct personality to each of them that really sets them apart. I think gun to my head, I could not differentiate between the first like 5 songs. I just could not. One other thing that I really want to mention too is that each of these songs has really unique transitions, and that is a really cool thing to listen to. In particular, my favorite transition is from the song July 13 in Car, Rain into the song MLDY, which I think stands for moldy. That is just masterful. I love that. And yeah, you know, other than that, I think the album flows really well song to song. I also like the vibe and the energy of the sequencing. I just, you know, I'm just not a fan of those first 4 songs because they are kind of amorphous. I wanted to love every song, I simply couldn't, but I think overall this album sounds amazing, and that's really important for music, I think. And so because of that, I am going to rate this a 7 out of 10, with my favorite song being MLDY. Next up is another live album from the queen of pop, at least in my mind, Jinu. This is her AOR release live at Liquid Room from last year. So this is the release performance of her album from last year, which came out about a year ago now, which I absolutely loved. I think that was my third or fourth favorite album of last year. And honestly, this live album really reaffirmed that score because I had it like on top of Toe and Hakushi Hasegawa, and I was looking at my list from last year recently and I was like, I put her above them? Yeah, honestly, I kind of think she earned it. She is maybe one of my favorite singers at the moment, and I have a lot of those, as you can probably imagine. The recording here is actually really high quality too. I was really surprised, and again, it really puts to shame that Kanekoayano live album from last month. It's kind of doggy, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so here, not a lot of change-ups to the songs in really any way, which is not a bad thing, of course. But there are also some returning songs, like from her first album, such as Eyes, 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 and also there is an 8-minute long interlude medley song that she does, which is called Jinu Reggae Medley. And it's sick, it's wonderful, I love that so much. And I wish it was a whole song, but it's just for this performance. But I guess technically it is a whole song because you can listen to it on this album. Nice. And so finally, I just have to mention my favorite song, which is Kiss, 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 which is performed here perfectly, divinely. I cannot believe how amazing her singing is. Really, truly, one of my favorite singers on the planet. Incredible. And for that reason, it's my favorite song on this album, and I'm going to rate this live album another amazing, because it's just amazing. This next album is a lot of words. This is We Don't Know What Love Is by the band Who Do You Love? This is sort of Sunny Day Service mixed with 60s surfer rock throwback sounds. It's a little bit like the Beach Boys meets the Beatles at some points. I gotta say, the instrumentals sound really good. I think the guitars are the real highlight on here. The lyricism is fine. It's nothing to write home about. I think if I had to really give it to the lyrics, I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. It's serviceable. They're not bad. They're just fine. Though I have to say, some songs really shine, such as The Man in Gautier. This is one that I like everything about it, including the lyrics too. What's weird is that the latter half of the tracklist is really, really good, but that first half is kind of not so much. I think this band has 2 vocalists, or maybe it's the same vocalist singing in 2 separate, very distinct styles. No offense to whoever I might be maybe about to offend. I like the deeper singing over the higher pitched singing, which is weird because I do like a lot of higher pitched male singers such as Eiichi Kyo from Yukiguni, and I guess also Ritsuki Akiyama, funnily enough. But yeah, something about the vocals on here just, I don't mesh with them. They're not bad, I just don't like them personally. And that's kind of how I feel about this album maybe as a whole. I feel like it's played very straight in a sense. By that I mean the band came in, and then they recorded, and then they left. This album just does not have too much standing out for me. I still like it. I'm going to rate it a 6 out of 10. I just could not really latch onto a lot here, unfortunately. I think maybe you would like this more if you are a huge fan of Yuransen or maybe Samurai, but me, I'm just not rocking with it really. But again, 6 out of 10, with my favorite song being The Man in Gautier. And now we are back with some J-rock, J-pop. This is going to be the album Gum by the artist Mita. So yes, this is J-rock, J-pop, but it's got some great jazz grooves to it as well, such as on the second song, which is titled Adventure, and also on the third, which is titled Changes. Because honestly, this shit got me moving my hips. Okay, I love this. I love all of this. I sort of feel like this is what the band Veg would sound like if they sounded more acid jazzy. On top of that too, I really feel like the band is combining the sounds of Lucky Tapes and Wonk and also Dotteray, just a little. Now, fair warning, the first song is actually not that jazzy much at all. However, do not be surprised, it's okay, it's gonna get a lot jazzier. What's weird though is that this album also uses some elements of house, like on the song Slipping Away. And I was not expecting that, yet I ended up really liking that sound actually. I think in general, this album just has small surprises of lots of genre sounds that I like a lot. Like for instance, the final song features some light rap and also a little bit of dub as well. For whatever reason, Mita only has 20,000 listeners on Spotify. They should be way bigger. I think I'm very surprised. So it's my hope that by next year, they have twice as many. That would make me very happy. So anyway, I'm going to rate this an 8 out of 10, and my favorite song is going to be Adventure. Next up is a cute folk pop album. This is going to be the album Tokyo by the artist Kazuho Okabayashi. She is a singer and songwriter from Gifu, and this is her second album of the year actually. Her first album from this year is titled Blue is So Bright, and that was under the name Kazuho Okabayashi with support, and it's 2 separate listings on streaming. So like this and that are like 2 separate artists. So just as a heads up, okay, so like I said, this is a mix of folk rock and pop a la Kanekoayano and also Sonoko Inoue. I feel like her sound is right in the middle of those two, where it's not as traditionally folk/country as Sonoko, but at the same time, it's not as mainstream rock or pop as Kanekoayano. And so with that said, how do I feel about her singing? I love her singing. Her lyrics get especially playful on the song Soyu Mono ga Suki, which if I was to translate it would probably be something like, that is the kind of thing I like. So I do feel like in Japan, Japanese folk rock is very popular actually. However, I really think Kazuho is really bringing her own style to this genre here on this album. Much like other artists in this space, her songs are about, you know, small towns with small problems, day-to-day life, inadequacies and issues, and, you know, stuff like that, small-time love, things of that nature, right? With that said, one song I want to talk about is titled Jitensha Tenkyo Sareta, which means my bike was taken away. And these are the lyrics. My bike was taken away, my bike was taken away. If they hadn't taken my bike, the whole day would have been perfect. They made me pay 5,000 yen, they made me pay 5,000 yen. That was all I had, I'm such a mess. I get it, but if I had 5,000 yen, I could have ate yakiniku, I could have ate eel, I could have taken a high-speed bus to come and see you. And yeah, that's just kind of how the songs are naturally, and it's just, like I said, small-time stuff, but it's still fun to listen to because it's just her in her life. And I feel like hearing about someone else's life through song like that is just really interesting. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, and my favorite song is going to be Soyu Mono ga Suki. Sodaine. Next up, we are doing a complete 180. This is going to be the new album, Bokuku Toto Kiki Mimi Dada Keke Nono Sese Kaka Ii, by the band Moreru. And luckily for us, the band has already translated this into English, so it's going to be Sekai Yu and Mimi. Thank you. So, okay, let me start off here. You are probably not going to like this. I am just going to be straight up about it. This is art punk, let's call it. This sounds like the kind of music that would be taking place during a party during a major disaster. Like a fire tornado, or the sky is coming down. This is what would be playing in that scenario. And also, full disclosure, full warning, proceed with caution. Do not listen to this with headphones. And if you do, do not listen to it loud. You will die. I will not be held liable for the hearing damage you get from the first song. I just won't. No. It sounds like I'm joking. I'm not. Do not listen to this loud. You will die. This album really combines metal and screamo and punk and noise and also hip hop too. There is one song on this album which is titled One to Death. And this has them playing over a like southern hip hop sounding sample. And it's sweet. It's awesome. This is possibly the most avant-garde thing I've ever heard in my life. But despite that, super listenable and approachable if you go into it with the right mindset, I think. And I say that because, yes, the songs are wild and crazy, they still have really catchy melodies you can follow along with. Such as on the song Chusotsu Warriors, this probably has the most defined melody on the album. This kind of sounds like Gangnam Boys-y a bit, sort of. I feel like for the most part, the songs are really seeped in like very heavy irony. It sort of seems to me like they're just not taking it seriously, which is what I want out of a very wild indie punk album like this. Like on the song Zetsumetsu, this song has the lead singer singing, but then there's also a random ah, and then there's also a werewolf sound effect. This album is just so fun and funny, and honestly, I love this. I think I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for now. I think that could go higher, and then my favorite song will be the one which is titled 3 Songs. Yep. Four Seasons Diary is the newest album from the band Save the Youth. And I say newest, this is actually their debut album. They are from Sendai, and yes, I love this album. Unfortunately, it is very short. It is 17 minutes long. This is J-pop punk and also Midwest emo. There is some English and also some Japanese too. And in general, I just think this album is a fantastic first showing. I really do like this. Like with most pop punk albums, I think the drummer here is really putting in the work. But honestly, so is everyone else too. But I just gotta say, Love the drum work here. And on top of that, the vocalist has a really strong, smooth voice as well that just really suits these instrumentals. The song Fall Off My Nervous Hearts really has everything on it just come together perfectly. I think if the band could make a whole album of songs like this one, Christ, that would simply be incredible. There is one other song which I thought was just as similarly fantastic, which is titled Forward. Please check that out, as well as that one I just mentioned, because Fall Off My Nervous Hearts, that song is my favorite on this album. And with that said, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So please check this out. I think they would love it if you could listen to them, because I know I do. This next album is the band's first, kind of. This is the self-titled album from Meri Meri Ya. They consider this their first album on Twitter. However, in January, they released an album. So in a way, this is kind of their second. I'm assuming that first one is maybe a compilation from singles and EPs, maybe. It's an album. The songs on this one are very much soft rock and also post-rock, sort of. This is a two-man band, and what's cooler than that is that they are actually dual vocalists too. So they're doing everything here. So I gotta say, I actually really liked a lot of the songs here. I also thought the sequencing was pretty good on this too. I thought the very first song, which is called Chocho, is really actually like well placed as that first song. And frankly, I feel like that's kind of just what I would say about all of the songs on here. There is one song which is my favorite. This is called Trance Jisan. And this has a great main guitar melody. And also the refrain is really, really fun. And the drumming is very tight too. So that's awesome. On top of all of that is some really great production too. It's good and diverse, which, as you can probably tell from a lot of what I've been saying in this video and in most of my videos, I love that shit. The song Fuyu no Mado, summer version, also leans a little bit Shimokitake rock as well, which again, I am into. And also too, I really like that specific sound for this band as well. And then the following song after that, Yoro ni Nattara, follows up on that sound as well. So just more of the same of what I like. What I will say though is that much like some other albums on this list that I've been talking about, I feel like the beginning is just kind of so-so, but it really opens up in that latter half, and that's probably where most of my favorite songs lie. And in conclusion, I think Meri Meri Ya just really know how to write a good, catchy song, and that is a, really good skill to have as a musician, And I guess in general, I just feel like they've laid a very nice foundation for future work. So of course, for that reason, I am very excited to hear more from them. And yeah, I cannot wait. I think I will rate this an 8 out of 10, with my favorite song being Trance Jisan. This next band is actually one that I mentioned in my experimental video as well. This is going to be the album Junk Magic by the band Puff. This thing is like a combination of UK rock and Japanese rock from, like I think I said in that video, the last 40, 50, maybe even 60 years. I would say that this is for fans of Supercar, Chibomato, Kero Kero Bonito, and also Fatboy Slim. So there's kind of your mix of UK and JP artists right there. I would say that pretty much every song here is very high energy, very explosive, which is great in small moderation. I cannot really listen to it all the way through too often, which I feel like is the main negative that I have for this album. Aside from that though, this just features such a cool mix of sounds and styles and generations and genres. I would also have to imagine that this album and their music in general goes crazy live. I'd love to see them live, though I don't know how I feel afterwards. Maybe I'd just be too tired. There are a few songs I don't particularly like. I think the prime example would probably be the song Fight Song. It's just not really got anything that I particularly like about it. It's not bad, it's just not for me. I think I would say that this album has some of the most diverse sounding music I've heard in a while, at the very least for this year, which is why I included it on that experimental video. I do like this album, but not everything is hitting for me, I think, as well as it should. And also, honestly, I feel like you might like this more than I do. I'm not quite sure, so maybe check it out and then let me know. I am going to give this a 7 out of 10, with my favorite song being Charming Pieces. I really do like that one. Next up, we have a pretty big one for a lot of people. This is going to be the new album from Hitsuji Bungaku, which is titled Don't Laugh It Off. I think it's been 2 or 3 years since their last album, but what can I say here? Other than that, the band is back with some very hopefully sad sounding 90s post-rock inspired pop. As usual, as expected, as required by the universe. Moeka Shiotsuka sounds amazing in every way. Vocally, on the guitar, her lyrics tight and fun, beautiful too. I love her wordplay as always. The lyricism, extremely vivid. Here's one of my favorite examples from the song Feel. A sky that goes on and on, towards a tomorrow that begins from this point. Lovely. The two members that are still in the band, the drummer is like on hiatus or something, so I think they've been cycling through support drummers from the look of it. I'm not quite sure. It's a lot going on. I don't know. But anyway, they are really punching above their weight here, I find. I just think the instrumentals are so lush with the guitar and the bass, and it just sounds, oh, so perfect. So meant to be. I really love all of the songs here, though I think my favorite would be the song Doll overall, but it's really tough. All of these songs are just so high quality, and this has been such a long time coming, and I just really liked listening to this album the handful of times that I did in preparation for this video. I think my only negative is that too many songs get into the realm of pop, and I'd rather they stick with that post-rock pop sounds more so than just pop, J-rock, J-pop stuff. For example, I think the songs Cure and also Map of the Future get too generic sounding. And I mean that from a production standpoint. Every so often, these two songs have these elements of what I would say are like top 40s pop songs in America, and I don't listen to those because I don't like those, and because these sometimes sound like those, I'm not really vibing with them. But I still think the album as a whole, really great, and it concludes so succinctly as well. This album has a great finish, and also start, and also middle, so that's very, very cool. I am going to rate this a 9 out of 10, and my favorite song is going to be Doll. Now let's talk about another debut album. This is going to be Gazing at a Mind by the band Soft Surf. This is some indie, shoegaze, rock pop. Something I noticed immediately with the singer for this band is that they sing almost with this Morrissey-like quality to it. And sort of in a way, this album is shoegazy to the point, and I guess indie rocky to the point, where it kind of reminds me of the 2018 album Dreaming In by the band Bearware. And I think I say that because a lot of the songs here are just really bouncy and fun and energetic and filled with life. This here is very fun time shoegaze, I feel like. What's more, a lot of the songs here are very dancey too, such as Neonarium, which I think is a really cool title. Every time I read it though, my brain kind of disconnects. Neonarium. Okay. Wait, no, that actually was super easy that time. Sorry. This band has two singers, which is super, super cool, and they actually use English a lot and also very proficiently too, which is nice as an English-speaking person. But I find that the vocals are fairly washed out in the mix. It is hard to hear them a lot of the time, which is kind of unfortunate. In general, I think the instrumentals are also not mixed very well, and for that reason, I think the mixing as a whole is just really mushy. It's really not great, unfortunately. Because of this, the sound quality is what I would consider not great, just overall, like I said. But I think because the songs themselves are so good and the songwriting is so like nice and catchy and exactly what I want, I'm gonna rate this maybe a little higher than I should. I think normally I would give something like this like a 5 or a 6, but I do really like these songs here, so I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10, with my favorite song being Neonarium. Got it that time. We are now at another live album. This is going to be live at Asukayama Park 2024 by the band Spoilman. They had an album come out earlier this year called Oblivion Tracks. Love it so much. Have not had a chance to talk about it yet, unfortunately. Go men. But this here has such a great selection of songs from their past, and they've got a ton of work out too. One thing to note though, this was recorded, obviously, in an outside park. And so for that reason, the quality not the best. But, okay, there's lots of really cool environmental sounds at play here. I think probably my favorite example is on the performance of the song Fantastic Car Sex. This has a 1-minute lead up into when the song actually starts. During this time, there is an audible crossing walk as well as murmurs from the crowd, and it just makes the songs themselves sound so alive because you have all of these natural city sounds. And I thought that was a really cool addition. It's also super long too, so if you're into that, you're gonna like this. So in keeping with my new rating scale for live albums, I am going to give this a great, which is maybe like a 5 to 7 range, maybe. I am going to say my favorite song is the one called Swimming Below. Like that one a lot for this. Okay, so next up is something weird. It is another debut album. This is the album Troche, or Troche, by the artist Momonesco. This is their debut album, and it is this almost Y2K hyperpop, indie, electronica, pop rock album. It's also lo-fi rock too, I guess I left that out. There are lots of electronic sounds here. It is mainly an electronic album. This kind of reminds me of a mix of Kinoe 64 and also 100 gecs and also Astrophysics. I think my favorite song on the album would be the rockiest one, in my opinion, which is titled WAV / like wave, and then colon, and then Nami, which also means wave in Japanese. How cool is that, right? I think this album has a lot of cool ideas, but I don't think anything particularly blew me away. This is also weird in that you can't listen to it on streaming, at least not for now. You can only purchase it on Bandcamp, which I did. So I bought it, and actually I need to download it on my iPod, I still haven't. But I think I paid like, I don't know, $5 or $6 for it. Yeah, it's fine. It might grow on me. I just don't know if it will. I don't really expect it to, honestly. I think this is probably going to stick at a 6 out of 10 for me for a while. But I think if you are into that kind of experimental bedroom pop, maybe this is for you. Just was not really for me, unfortunately. So yeah, 6 out of 10 with my favorite song being Wave: Wave. We are now at album 39. We're at the finish. This is it. This is going to be the newest album from the artist Ye. This is titled Horse County. This is her 6th album, and honestly, I went into this with a ton of hesitation. And that's because I really liked Motanai, which I think was from 2016, maybe. Lovely album, tons of fantastic tracks, just great overall. And every subsequent album that she released after, I just was not into. There were maybe a song or two on each of them that I liked, but other than that, nothing. So, you know, imagine how happy I was when I got to this album. I started it and I thought it was absolutely wonderful. This album is essentially just her and her piano. And there's also some apartment sound effects too, because she's seemingly recording this in just a corner of her house, if the music video is to be believed maybe. But I love that sound. I really, really do. This was the exact return to form that I craved from Ye. And I think it's because this is just such a simplistic sounding album too, because it's just her and the piano. And for that reason, it kind of makes me think of this like stark white empty apartment. This apartment has a lot of natural light, white walls, maybe an orange wooden floor, and it's like the soundtrack for when you have nothing is how I would describe this. This album really has this obvious sense of what I would call emptiness. I feel like this is really reflected in the lyrics themselves too, like on the song Oe Oe, which is just that word repeated for the most part. I don't know what it is about this album. Whenever I listen to it, I get chills in a really good way. I think it's maybe because this sounds so intimate. That's kind of what I get out of it, I think. This album also really got me thinking that I would really like some more empty albums like this too. I think that's maybe why I enjoyed the newest Mac DeMarco album so much. It's titled Guitar, and it's just demo sounding songs, yet I personally think there's a lot more there that not a lot of other people are kind of picking up on, but I don't know. So yes, I love the piano compositions here. I think Ye's singing is absolutely wonderful. I love her lyricism. I literally could not ask for anything more out of her. This is just everything I wanted from her. And I feel like even if I did want something more, I'd feel bad about asking for it because this album just delivers for me. So I am going to rate it a 9 out of 10. I think that could change to a 10 out of 10. I just need a lot more time to soak it in, I think. But my favorite song is going to be Yoku Hanashi. And now we are done. That was 39 albums. I hope you had fun because I did, even though I think my voice is gone. It's done, it's tired, I don't want any more. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. These videos in particular are such an undertaking. So I think when a lot of people watch them, it just makes me so happy. I really do appreciate it because that makes me feel like my time was not wasted at all, even if sometimes it was. But only sometimes. I'm not quite sure if I'll be making a video like this for November just because there aren't as many albums coming out in November as there have been that I'm really interested in, like there have been for October and September, so I don't know, maybe. I'm really hoping I didn't miss anything that came out this month, but if I did, let me know. Or maybe don't. That might kind of disappoint me. Actually, you know what? You should. You should. I dare you. And hopefully, if you are this far in the video, that means you liked it a lot and you wanted to hear more. So, you know, if you want to like more and hear more from me, you can subscribe and check out my other stuff because I only talk about Japanese music. And if you like that, boy, do I have some content for you. But anyway, that is all I have for you today and for this month. and I will see you again very soon. So, bye-bye.